We're with Fanny Cornejo. Fanny, what does it mean to be the first emerging conservationist award winner with the Indianapolis Prize?
Hi, it is so exciting. I'm very humbled. I feel very blessed. Wow, it's so wonderful to be the inaugural winner. Also, what it means, not only for me, but for my team, all the 30 people of Minkawasi that every day are working very hard to make conservation work happen on the ground, and especially what it means for our local partners, because nothing would be possible if we were not supported by all the different local and indigenous communities that hand in hand work with us together to achieve conservation on the ground.
Well, let's talk a little bit about you and your work. You've mentioned your nonprofit, Yuncawasi, which is based there in Peru. Why did you create Yuncawasi?
Yuncawasi was founded back in 2007 by my mom and by myself with the goal of being able to have conservation projects that were born in the ground by talking to the local people and putting together all the ideas, all the vision of development, the conservation hopes that local people had. So with this in mind is that Yuncawasi was born. And since then it has been 16 years of, a lot of successes, challenges, and to be able to work hand in hand with our local partners.
One of the areas that you are very concerned about is the tropical Andes. Why is that so important to you?
The tropical Andes is a global biodiversity hotspot and is deemed by scientists as the epicenter of biodiversity. So the tropical Andes, because of the topography of the Andes, we have all these different valleys, canyons, and in each one of them we have a huge biodiversity. But then if you go to the next one, you have a different set of biodiversity community. So everything is very unique, very rare, and unfortunately, everything is also very endangered. So that means that because of unplanned development actions, because of climate change now, and all of these different human caused activities, it is also one of the most endangered places in the world. And this is home also to one of the most iconic biodiversity of Peru, which is this monkey, the yellow-tailed woolly monkey.
Yeah, let's talk about that yellow-tailed woolly monkey. Tell our viewers about why this monkey is so important to you.
The yellow-tailed woolly monkey is the largest endemic mammal of Peru. So it should be to Peru what the panda bear is to China. And the thing about the yellow-tailed woolly monkey is it also has a very rich history. It was first discovered by Alexander von Humboldt back in the 1800s. And when Alexander von Humboldt came to Peru, he actually never saw a live yellow-tailed woolly monkey. He only saw the pelts that were used by local people of mules. Many decades later, some scientists from the British Museum came to Peru, and they also found some pelts and some animals, but no scientists had seen a live yellow-tailed woolly monkey during those years. Then back in the 1970s, the American primatologist Russell Mittermeier and the Peruvian scientist Hernando de Macedo decided that it had been too long without anyone hearing anything about this monkey. So they went into a couple of expeditions, and after much work, back in 1974, they rediscovered the yellow-tailed woolly monkey, and it was the very first time any scientist saw an alive one. So many decades have passed, but unfortunately the threats remain the same. And this is an animal that occurs in the middle of the mountains. So it's also very challenging to be able to see it, to find it. And it ended up causing that even nowadays, we know very little about this animal. A simple question like how many are left is something that we are not yet able to really answer because there is still so much work that needs to be done to be able to know more about this species.
How many yellow-tailed woolly monkeys do you think are still left?
So we usually think it may be around 1,000 mature animals that are left, which is not a lot for an animal that is this large to be able to maintain, its genetic diversity and have a healthy population. So that is a huge challenge. However, we still discover new things up in the Andes. Very recently, in 2019, we discovered a new population of yellow-tailed woolly monkey in the central Andes of Peru. So there are still many things, many mysterious things that are covered by the clouds of the Andes that we still need to be looking for.
Tell me about the Andean bears and why those are important to that area of the world.
The Andean bears are very interesting because they are the only bears that we have in South America. And in contrast with the bears that we can find in North America, these bears are mainly vegetarian. They're feeding mainly on the different fruits, flowers, roots that they can find in their habitats. And they have a very important role as the architects of the forest. So they do different activities, they disperse the seeds, so they allow forests to be healthy. But the thing is, they are large animals that even though eat a lot of vegetables and a lot of fruits in their diet, they sometimes are accused of being the ones that may be killing cows. So this creates this perception of conflict with local people. So they are actually sometimes hunted because of this, and that is why they are also endangered.
All right, so have you seen a yellow-tailed woolly monkey and an Andean bear close up, and what was that experience like?
Well, with the yellow-tailed woolly monkey, I have devoted all my adult life to this animal, so I have seen it many times, and the experiences, even though it has happened 1,000 times, it always feels magical because it's a primate. You know, a primate, they have this certain of degree of intelligence, so you feel seen. You feel that there is something behind those eyes when they look at yours. So with the yellow woolly monkey, it's always this sensation when we are in the middle of the forest, following them, feeling that they see you, looking how they behave on every day. It's really magical. It's such a wonderful experience to feel this connection with a wild animal. And with the Andean bear, it's also wow. It's very also overwhelming because it's a large mammal, one of the largest that you can find in the tropical Andes. And I have seen them pretty close, like at 40 feet from me. So it has been like, wow, you know, and it's such a majestuous, such a beautiful animal. So wonderful experiences.
And you did mention it a few minutes ago, but I wanted to go back to why you feel like if you could put the importance of the yellow-tailed woolly monkey to Peru, put that in perspective for those of us who may not have ever seen it before, but we may know about other animals and their importance to other countries.
Yes, the yellow woolly monkey is a large primate. It weighs around 25 pounds, so it can get, for South American primates, pretty large. One thing to keep in mind is that these monkeys are strictly arboreal, so they're highly dependent on the continuity of forests. They do not come to the ground like the monkeys that we may see on documentaries in Africa, for example. So they are highly dependent on the forest, and therefore that's why they are more vulnerable to deforestation and forest fragmentation. The yellow woolly monkey also is the largest vertebrate that is endemic of Peru. Endemic means that it occurs only in Peru, so it's not in any of the neighboring countries, and it can only be found in the northern and central Andes of Peru. So if we're thinking about iconic animals that are going to be representing the biodiversity of a country, the yellow-tailed woolly monkey should be this iconic animal for Peru. And a good comparison is thinking about the panda bear for China, for example. This is how prominent this animal should be. And also the level of how endangered it is also really high. It's very close to reaching extinction. That is something that for many years have been a great concern, that during my lifetime, I may see this monkey go extinct. And that is also why we are promoting and pushing for all of these efforts to ensure that this doesn't happen in the next decades.
What inspired the name of your nonprofit? And if you would, as an explanation, can you talk about the importance of the logo and how this represents the House of the Forest?
Yes, when we were thinking of a name for Yuncawasi, we wanted something that really represented our slogan. The slogan of Yuncawasi is conservation for the people, because we deeply believe that conservation wouldn't and won't be sustainable and inclusive if it also doesn't bring well-being to the local populations. So when creating the philosophy, the vision, the mission of Yuncawasi, we had that really, you know, in our core. That is why Yuncawasi means the house of the forest, the shelter of the jungle, and our logo represents this sort of interaction that we have between people and the different ecosystems that we have.
I have two more questions. I've heard you say that you want people to know where their water comes from when they turn on their faucet. Why is that important?
It is important for us humans to really improve our relationship with nature. The different events that we're facing right now, these extreme climate events, all these fires happening. In Peru, for example, this year we had our first cyclone ever. We never had cyclones, but this year we had one and it devastated the northern coast of Peru. So all of these events, COVID, for example, as well, these pandemics, are a reflection of our relationship with nature. And that is something that we as humanity, we really need to understand and we really need to improve. And we also really need to understand and value what nature provides to us. For us, sometimes we're in our homes and you press a button and then you have electricity. You press another button and you have water. But we're not really thinking where that water comes from. What it takes for nature to be able to provide us with water, what it takes to provide us with electricity. So we really need to start thinking about that because it's not only going to be, or it's not only important for, species like the yellow-tailed woolly monkey or the Andean bear, but it's actually really important for our own existence as a species.
Fanny, finally, what is the biggest threat to wildlife in Peru, the area that you are working in?
The biggest threat is the transformation of the land. So unfortunately, because of lack of opportunities for local people, they engage in slash and burn agriculture, for example. So this is slowly increasing the agricultural frontier and causing the loss of forests year by year. So this is something that actually it's very solvable. It takes, people coming together, investing the right amount of money, providing the right opportunities, and it's something that we can change. And that is why, even though a fear is that species like the yellow-tailed woolly monkey may go extinct in the next decades, we also have hope because we know how we can get this done, how we can get this fixed. And it's really what it takes is to get us all people, come together, work together, articulate all of our actions to be able to achieve real conservation successes.